Well, UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has signed Britain up to a series of new agreements with the EU that, in his words, resets the relationship after Brexit. Now, these agreements cover defence, trade and allowing EU fishing vessels into UK waters. Here he was announcing it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Britain is back on the world stage, working with our partners, doing deals that will grow our economy and putting more money in the pockets of working people.
Joining me now, Brendan O'Neill, the chief political reporter for Spiked Online. Something tells me you're not as excited by this as Sir Keir Starmer, and I suspect a lot of Brexiteers aren't either.
No, we absolutely are not. You know, we have to remember that 17.4 million people voted for Brexit in 2016. I was one of those people, very proud to have been one of those people. And that was a vote to leave the European Union, to completely cut ties with the European Union, which is an institution we don't like. And yet this new deal that Keir Starmer is trumpeting there, this takes us back into the EU, essentially. It brings us back under certain rules and regulations drafted in Brussels and institutions we voted to reject. So it kind of brings us back in by the back door. And I think what Keir Starmer is doing, he always hated Brexit. And what he's doing now is he's killing it by a thousand technocratic blows. And this is part of that process.
I just don't understand why, though. I mean, we saw how he buckled so fast on immigration last week, and we know that he's under pressure, internal pressure from colleagues with this surge in support for Reform UK. They're really worried about the next election. So how does a deal like this do anything to convince a potential Reform voter that they should vote for Labor?
It really doesn't. And in fact, I think he has signed the death warrant of the Labour Party, the death warrant of the Labour government with this deal. It really is that bad. And as you say, you know, Reform is nipping at the heels of Labour. Reform, which is Nigel Farage's party, it's a pro-Brexit party. It's wary about mass immigration. It's against wokeness. You know, it's a party that appeals to millions of working class voters here. That is now appealing to voters who would traditionally go for Labour. And yet still Keir Starmer is pushing through this crazy deal, this deal which makes us beholden to the European Court of Justice. There are certain food and trade regulations that we will have to follow, which means that if a judgment is made in the ECJ that affects those rules, we will have to abide by it. I'm sorry, but a nation that has to abide by the judgments of a foreign court is not an independent nation. And that's what a lot of voters are waking up to, the fact that Keir Starmer is willing to sell off our sovereignty in order to appease the European Union.